2, 1.
Well, welcome to Actionable Intelligence. I'm Eric Greitens. I am honored to be with you tonight, and as you know, this is the show that respects your intelligence. We honor you as a citizen, and we bring you the stories that the mainstream media too often ignore. Breaking news from John Solomon and his team at Just the News. It's a big story titled, "Email Provided to FBI Alleges Hunter Biden Hadn't Paid Taxes on Some Burisma Payments." Now, many of you may have seen by now the headlines that Hunter Biden is now officially under federal investigation. But now John Solomon and his team at justthenews.com have broken the story about at least part of what that investigation may be focused on. He joins us now, Just the News editor-in-chief, John Solomon. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, great to be with you.
Absolutely. So tell our viewers, please, what have you found?
So last December, there was a Delaware shopkeeper. He had gotten a copy of Hunter Biden's laptop. Hunter Biden had left it behind, never picked it up. The guy looked at it one day. He saw some suspicious activity on there. He called up the FBI. The FBI last December, using a subpoena, obtained that hard drive. On that hard drive, there is an email from 4 days before President Trump was inaugurated, January 16, 2017. And in it, one of Hunter Biden's colleagues at Rosemont Seneca, one of the many firms he had, wrote Hunter Biden and kind of laid out, here's all the money and the taxes you paid the last 3 or 4 years. And in the middle of that assessment, he tells Hunter Biden, by the way, there was $400,000 that you got from Burisma. That's the Ukrainian gas company that started the whole Biden scandal. In 2014 that you never paid taxes on. You better file an amended tax return because you haven't paid the government that. That jumps out at us because what we just heard on Wednesday is that there's a criminal investigation of Hunter Biden, and specifically it's focused on tax issues. This could be one of the issues. I know China's some of the issues. There was all this money moving through and around Hunter Biden. Even in this memo, there's talk about shadow income, income that just was moving around, and you get a sense that it was a very fungible operation if this email is authentic on the hard drive.
Wow. So there's this email. So we now know he is under investigation.
Yeah.
He's confirmed that himself.
On the record.
And he said that it was about his taxes. And now we know there's an email where 4 days before the Trump administration is about to come in, now you're going to get a different administration, and they're going back and they're saying this wasn't his taxes from 2016. They're going back a couple years looking at income from 2014 and saying, hey, you better take care of this problem.
Yeah, that's basically the implied message of the email.
Now, remind our viewers, Burisma.
Yeah.
Right. What was Burisma? What was Hunter Biden's interaction? And what was the former Vice President Joe Biden's role in Ukraine?
Yeah. So Burisma is one of the largest natural gas companies in Ukraine. And right after the Ukrainian Revolution of February 2014, two things happened. They threw out a Russian president, then Russian troops came into the Crimean region of Ukraine. At that moment, Joe Biden is put in charge by President Obama of all Ukraine-U.S. policy. And a few weeks after that happens, he goes to Ukraine and says, hey, Ukrainians, here's one way you can fight the Russians. Build your own Ukrainian gas infrastructure. Don't be relying on Vladimir Putin. Not 2 weeks after that, Hunter Biden gets hired by this company. Now, at the moment he gets hired, there are 2 criminal investigations that have just been launched of Burisma. One of them is looking at the owner, Nicholas Zlochevsky, for taking all of the gas permits in Ukraine when he was a cabinet minister and giving them to his company.
Yes.
Insider dealing. Yes. The second one involved taxes and corruption. And he's put on the board. Those investigations burble but never go anywhere. And in 2016, Joe Biden comes in, and during one of his trips, he forces the firing of Ukraine's attorney general. They call him the prosecutor general. At that very moment he forced the firing, that attorney general was investigating Burisma and his company where Hunter Biden worked. Most interestingly, we just recently got emails in which the State Department's reporting in real time, hey, while Hunter Biden's on the board, hey, Burisma is making bribery payments, and they refer it to the FBI. So this is a corrupt company. His son is on it, Joe Biden's son's on it, and when the prosecutor's getting close, Joe Biden goes in and fires the prosecutor. Now, he says he didn't do it for Burisma. No. He did it for other reasons, but the appearance issue is real.
Well, it's a real issue, and I think just at a very basic level, for our folks back in Potosi, Missouri, or who are watching this in Dunklin County, Missouri, they're thinking to themselves, why would Hunter Biden get a board seat on a Ukrainian natural gas company.
Yeah.
This guy isn't an expert in the Ukraine. He's not an expert in natural gas. He said this himself.
He did. In
Why,
fact, here's
why
what
is he there?
He said, I probably got it because of my last name. And a lot of things I got in my life, he said, were probably because of my last name. He was honest in that one ABC interview. This was patronism. This was really, most of the people who've looked at this from the outside, they saw this as protection money.
Yes.
Burisma was putting putting Hunter Biden on the board so that maybe the United States wouldn't push the corruption case very much.
Wow. And now, John, let's talk about this story itself, the story of Hunter Biden, former Vice President Biden, not just in the Ukraine, but in China, all of these stories. You and a few other intrepid colleagues have been pushing this story, and you've been digging in, just looking at the facts.
Yeah.
But when this story was coming out before the election, it wasn't just that the mainstream media ignored it.
Oh, quite the opposite.
You actually had big tech banning people who were putting it out. Twitter came out, they banned the New York Post from actually putting it out. President Trump's own press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, had her Twitter account suspended over this. And I want to read you because I want to get your reaction to this. You've been a journalist, not just at Just the News, but for decades at a lot of different organizations, and an award-winning journalist. This is what Politico, this was their headline. They said, Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinformation, dozens of former intel officials say. CNN said the anatomy of New York Post's dubious Hunter Biden story. And the Washington Post wrote the truth behind the Hunter Biden non-scandal. I mean, this is what the mainstream media was writing. Some people have said this is media malfeasance. Some people have said it's dereliction of duty. What do you make of their reaction to this story?
It's the converse of what the media did in Russia collusion, right? They pushed the false story for 2 years. Then when an accurate story comes out about a Democratic candidate, they do everything. When I first broke my story that really put Joe Biden and Hunter Biden back on the front page, it was April of 2019. People called it a conspiracy theory, garbage journalism, even though they couldn't identify a single fact that was wrong.
Yes.
Now, think about what happened. The President of the United States was impeached on the idea that there was no reason for him to ask Ukrainian authorities to look at Burisma.
Wow.
When that was going on, when I was being impugned, when the President was being impeached, we now know this week the FBI and the U.S. Attorney had already begun a criminal investigation of Hunter Biden. It began in 2018. So the federal government knew there was something wrong.
Yes.
They were investigating it, but Donald Trump never got the benefit of that information for his impeachment. And certainly all the reporters that now suddenly woke up this week and said, oh my God, he could be indicted, this is a big deal, they haven't gone back and corrected their reporting. All of the attacks they did on myself, Peter Schweitzer, the president, the story of Ukraine, Rudy Giuliani, he was smeared a lot. The story of Ukraine was a scandal when we reported it, and it's a scandal now, and the media for more than 18 months suppressed it.
Wow. And let's follow this thread, because I think for a lot of our viewers, there are a lot of pieces here, but let's make this connection again to the impeachment of the president and what we know now. So again, the president was impeached because they said, at least Democrats in the House said, that it was wrong of him to ask people to look into the issues surrounding Burisma.
He had no basis, they said. No basis. We now know there was a basis because there's a tax issue for Hunter Biden.
Yes.
We also know there was another basis. We now know, we only learned it after impeachment, the very witnesses that the Democrats used to make the impeachment case later told us we saw bribe money change hands. Burisma was bribing Ukrainian officials while Hunter Biden was on the board. We now know that those same State Department officials time and again believed that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden created a conflict of interest that undercut our ability to fight corruption in Ukraine. All of that got suppressed by the media until just the last few weeks.
Wow. And John, for our viewers, I think so many people are going to be so frustrated and so upset that this information didn't come out before the campaign. Now, again, you and others had been publishing this, you'd been talking about it, but the mainstream media didn't cover it. Big tech censored it. Now we're starting to at least get a glimpse into some of the facts. What do you think is next legally? Do we have a sense for what's next legally? And do you have a sense for what might likely be coming next in terms of the story itself?
Well, one of the things that struck me about Hunter Biden's announcement this week is that he got a communication from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware. That usually doesn't happen unless they're about to indict you. It's known as a target notification. This looks like a target notification. Now, Hunter Biden didn't use those words, but everything I've seen over the years, U.S. Attorney doesn't come over and say, oh, by the way, we're investigating you. They usually come and say, hey, we're thinking of indicting you. You should be prepared. Do you have anything you want to submit?
Wow.
So we should be looking to see whether action. This case has been going on for 2 years. It started in 2018. So the first thing to look for, will there be court action against Hunter Biden? Was there a plea deal to be had?
Yes.
Did he really do something wrong? Does he get exonerated? I don't know.
Right.
We should be watching for that. Secondly, the Senate, Ron Johnson, Chuck Grassley are bringing out some big documents. And third, this weekend, I'm going to have 2 new Ukraine stories, one about our ambassador and what she knew, and one about a warning that went to Vice President Joe Biden in 2015, warning him that the boss for his son, Mr. Zlochevsky, had a long history of corruption, and the Justice Department was involved in investigating him. I'm going to break that story on Monday.
Wow. Well, John, we'll very much look forward to having you back with us, with our viewers. And I want to remind all of you that you can go out to justthenews.com and don't just go yourself. If you want to get these facts and you want to be able to read about them yourselves, if you want to be able to dig in, go to justthenews.com and then take the action of actually letting your friends and family and colleagues know where you're getting these stories. All of the facts are going to be followed by John Solomon and his team at justthenews.com. We're going to be right back with more on Actionable Intelligence in just a minute. Stay right with us.